What's up guys, I'm back once again to show you some of the hot mods of the week, and in this week's episode we have 5 brand new weapons from another popular FPS game. As well as this, we also have a retexture for the Pip-Boy. But to kick things off, do you ever feel that the Commonwealth is in need of some law enforcement? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do with this first mod, Law Enforcers. And of course, you can craft this at a chem station under the utility section. It doesn't have any perk requirements, just a small amount of crafting materials. Now, what you are actually going to get is a sheriff's outfit and a police outfit. You're also going to get a ballistic vest, which is going to work with both of these outfits. Now, as for upgrades, most of the outfits only have access to ballistic weave, and the vests have access to all the upgrades that you would expect in an armor in Fallout 4. Anyway, let's move on to the next mod. Now, in Fallout 4, there are 2 things that you're going to be staring at the most: your weapon and your Pip-Boy. So for this next mod, we're going to be retexturing the Pip-Boy. And of course, the mod that I'm talking about is Pip-Boy Retextured, and this mod is going to come in 2 files. The standard, which is going to allow you to change the skin of your Pip-Boy just like it was a Creation Club skin, and the second file being a replacer, making all of the Pip-Boys in the game have the same skin. And of course, this week's weapon mod is Destiny 2 Scouts and Pulse Rifles, and what this mod is going to do is add 5 Scouts and Pulse Rifles into the game. And of course, these are the Bad Juju, Infinite Path 8, Patron of Lost Causes, Polaris Lance, and finally, Vex Mythoclast. And to get your hands on these weapons, simply head to the Museum of Freedom. Here you can find them all in a metal container just to the right after entering the museum. Now let's go over these weapons one at a time, starting with the Bad Juju. And in terms of upgrades, you have the choice of 6 receivers, 4 barrels, 3 mags, 3 firing modes, 4 sights, and finally 9 damage options to balance the weapon. Now, as someone who has played very little Destiny, I'm just going to be judging these weapons on how they actually are, rather than comparing them to their Destiny 2 counterparts. So, the Bad Juju, well, this weapon has a lot of damage, but it also has a lot of recoil, so I would recommend firing this weapon in small bursts, or to just use the burst fire modification. Anyway, with that being said, let's move on to the Infinite Path 8, and in terms of upgrades, you have the choice of 6 receivers, 4 barrels, 3 magazines, 3 firing modes, 2 sights, and finally 9 damage options to balance the weapon. So, the Infinite Path 8, well, compared to the previous weapon, it still retains the same high base damage, but the recoil is significantly easier to control. So, with that being the case, you might think that this weapon is easier to use than the Bad Juju. Well, yes and no. Yes, the recoil is more manageable, but the iron sights seem to be a bit off compared to the previous weapon. Now, it's not off by a lot, it only takes a small amount of time to adjust to it, but it's something to consider. Anyway, let's move on to the Patron of Lost Causes, and in terms of upgrades, you have the choice of 6 receivers, 4 barrels, 3 magazines, 9 sights, and finally 9 damage options to balance the weapon. Now, this weapon is probably my favourite of the 5 added. It takes all of the strengths of all of the weapons and combines them into one very usable weapon. As well as this, the bullets will actually appear where you point the crosshairs, so no need to learn how to adjust to use this weapon. Another reason why this is one of my favourites. Anyway, let's move on to the Polaris Lance, and in terms of upgrades, you have the choice of 2 receivers, 3 sights, and finally 9 damage options to balance the weapon. Now, before we get too in depth with this weapon, I just want to point out a glaring bug, and that is, unfortunately, this carries on for the entire recording, and it didn't just do it for this recording, it does it every single time I fire the weapon. So for the next part of the video, there won't be any audio from the gameplay that you're seeing. But anyway, just like the 3 previous weapons, this one also has insane damage, and is perhaps one of the most unique looking weapons added by this mod. Anyway, whilst we're on the subject of unique looking weapons, let's move on to the last one of the mod, the Vex Mythoclast. And for the final weapon, in terms of upgrades, you have the choice of 6 receivers, 4 barrels, 3 magazines, 7 sights, and for the last time, 9 damage options to balance the weapon. Now, from all of the weapons added by this mod, this one is probably my second favourite. Of course, it still follows the trend of the previous weapons by having extremely high damage, but this one just feels so much more powerful to use, probably because of the sound it makes when it's fired. Either way, I really enjoyed all 5 of the weapons added by this mod, and with that, that's going to wrap it up for this mod, and the video for that matter. I hope you all enjoyed the mods here today, and if you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see you all in the next video.